Welcome to a rather cloudy UK. It's good to have you with us. My name is Toby Thompson, director in the glorious Grenville Turner Studios here on Cranfield University's campus. It's great to have you with us. We'd love to know where you are in the world. We're assuming somewhere in Africa. So tell us where you are. If you can find the Zoom text chat, you know Zoom, find the text chat and put your location in the text chat. It makes us feel good. We're going to be talking about sustainability and supply chains coming up. So if you've logged on to the wrong webinar, welcome to sticking around. We want this to be interactive, so we want your questions, your challenges, your comments and observations pretty much at any time using the text chat. We're not going to open the audio channels, just the text chat. So just put something in the chat if you can. Salosberg, let's have a look. I'm looking at some of those places. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So we're going to be together for an hour. We're going to promise not to go beyond the hour. You've got busy days ahead. We've got a bunch of guests in the studio, and we want you to ask questions of that. Plus you can talk to each other, I think, in the chat too. South Africa, a lot of South Africans. Great to have you with us. Joining me in the studio, let's get to the meat of the event. Sustainability and supply chain. We're joined in the studio by Benny. Benny, it's fantastic to have you with us. We know Benny from a long time ago. Benny is a friend of Cranfield. Benny used to work at Cranfield and now at Coventry University, I understand. We'll come back to Benny in a second. We're also joined by two amazing people online. Let's have a look at those. Look at that, amazing people. Emma, was that a wave? Give us a proper wave. That was a little wave. There you go. A proper wave. Why is it we always wave at cameras? Emma Macdonald at Strathclyde and William also from Strathclyde. Emma, I'm going to start with you. Just give us a brief introduction about who you are and what you do.
Oh, thanks very much, Toby, and thanks very much for the invitation. So I'm a professor at Strathclyde University in Scotland. I'm a director of the Stephen Young Institute for International Business, and I'm a Charles Huang Chair in International Business and Innovation, which is quite a mouthful. I'm really interested in international and sustainable business.
Wow. So think of Emma and international business. Fantastic you being with us. And you're up in Glasgow, in a rather cloudy Glasgow by the sound of it.
Yes, and wet.
Cloudy and wet. Brilliant. Emma, thank you. Stick around. William, can I come to you? If you could introduce yourself, research assistant also at Strathclyde University. Tell us more.
Yeah, I enjoyed the honor of being a research associate working with Emma in the Stephen Young Institute for International Business. And I'm a last year PhD student from the Department of Marketing here in the University of Strathclyde, and I'm passionate about how companies and the partners deploy sustainability-related practices in local and global value chains. So it's a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Brilliant, William. Thank you. And we've got, I'm sure, a ton of questions coming your way. If you like the look of the people that you've seen with the interest that we have here, please get your questions ready about what it is that you see. Benny, lastly, tell us about yourself, what you do. You've got a very interesting sounding centre that you're a professor in.
Thank you, Toby. Good morning, everyone. And very happy to be invited here at Cranfield University. Happy to be back. I'm a professor of sustainability and supply chain management. And I'm also looking after the research engagement with Indonesia.
And I heard e-mobility and clean growth. Tell us more about that.
Indeed. So I'm working at a centre, a research centre called e-mobility and clean growth. In particular, I'm looking after that clean growth theme. So e-mobility means starting from EV, batteries. Yeah. So this area.
We're going to hear more about batteries later on. We have one more guest to welcome to the session. This is Amon. And Amon's going to give, before we go back to Emma, William and Benny, a little overview based on CAIA. So Amon, can I ask you to just introduce yourself and maybe pitch what this event is at and where it fits into CAIA?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar on sustainability and circular economy in process safety. My name is Amon Nyamingura. I'm the responsible care manager at CAIA. And today we are delighted to have you join us for this important conversation, where we are going to explore how process safety can go beyond hazard prevention to actively support sustainability and circular economy goals. As industries evolve, so too must be our approach to safety, integrating environmental sustainability, responsibility, resource efficiency, and social impact into the very fabric of our operations. So in today's session, we will gain insights into designing and operating chemical processes that reduce waste, emissions, energy, and water usage while enabling reuse, recycling, and resource recovery. It is also an honor that we are going to be joined by the very distinguished guests that have been introduced, and they are going to guide us through the discussions that we will have today. So before we begin, I would like to repeat again, we would like to encourage you to participate actively, ask questions, share your thoughts, and engage with our speakers. Let's make the most of this opportunity to learn, collaborate, and move one step closer to a safer and more sustainable future. So thank you very much for joining us, and let's get started.
Thank you very much indeed for that introduction. That kind of sets the scene. Now, this is something that you're passionate about, and I heard several people already talk about passion in regard to this topic. Please engage, as Amon has just said. Let's have your questions, and ideally challenges. Challenges are a great place to start a conversation. So if you feel what we're talking about here is something that doesn't land with you, tell us, and we're going to somehow come around to exactly that. We heard from Amon there, Benny, about social impact, circular economy, designing for sustainability. Just lead us into some, you've got some slides for us, but lead us into some of those topics. Where do you sit with some of those things?
Sure, indeed. When you hear the term circular economy, people think about waste processing. But when we heard the term waste, it means it's too late. So we need to tackle this before it becomes waste.
So that's really early on. You need to design for sustainability.
Absolutely. So we have to think about this process even before we use the product. So maybe from the product design stage into the use and finally the end of life.
We've got a lot of chemical engineers here today. Are we talking about this being applicable across all industries?
Yes, in general, of course, yes. So even any products, particularly chemical products, is even more important, even more crucial to think about product design, early design for circularity. Yeah.
And those that would say, well, I'm not involved in design of my product, I can't do anything about it, what would you say?
Well, it's we have organization, and in any organization we have this chain of processes, and of course we need to think about the process, not just one particular process, but chain of process from the upstream to downstream, and we need to think about this more carefully.
And it's available to everybody, so thank you. Just a reminder again, please send us your questions at pretty much any time. Benny, you've got some slides for us. I'm going to have you kick off if you can.
Sure. Here we go. Right, good morning again, everyone. The title of my presentation is Circular Economy and Clean Growth. I'll be talking about a bit about the concepts and also some research direction. As Toby mentioned early on, I work at the Center for E-Mobility and Clean Growth at Coventry University. When I talk about circular economy, you probably have seen these pictures. I alluded very early in the beginning that it's all sometimes, not always, talking about waste processing. But when it comes to waste processing, be they food waste, electronic waste, or any other waste, sometimes a bit too late. And what do we do? Well, of course, people will be thinking before it becomes waste or before we throw this away or incinerate or to go to waste processing, maybe we could recycle them. We fix them, we recycle them, and then if you follow the show in the BBC, well, Repair Shop is a very famous show that, of course, promotes circular economy. The other term that I wanted to introduce to you is clean growth. And as you heard from my center, e-mobility and clean growth. For me, clean growth is a simple term that we will, of course, as a nation, as an organization, as a business, we need to grow economically, but also cleanly. So growth that respects limits, that our environment will have limits, and also with that limits, we can unlock new possibilities. Of course, circular economy, green technologies, clean energy are part of these clean growth initiatives. Now, when we talk about circular economy, we want to look at the other side of the spectrum. We look at the linear economy, where we normally take resources, make it into something. In this case, it's probably aluminum cans, and then we use these cans, and after we finish drinking the drinks, then we dispose it off. Of course, this is an economic model that relies on short production product life, that encourages people to buy more because the resources are cheap, easily accessible, be they materials and also energy that used to make that product. So this model is known as cradle to grave. And of course, we know that it's not sustainable. So we need to be a bit more sustainable. How do we do that? Of course, the simple thing would be, let's collect the cans and then recycle it. And in that way, we think that we increase or improve our sustainability. That's true. However, probably this is not what we call it circular economy. There is one circle there, but the true circular economy would be something like this, where you collect, and if you can, of course, you reuse it. And then if you can't reuse it, perhaps you need to repair some of the components of that product, and then you remake it, remanufacture it. And then in the end, if you cannot remake it into a new product, then you recycle it before you incinerate or throw it away. So that's what we normally understand as circular economy. A lot of circles in that. However, in order for us to have that model where things can be in circulation, we need to have these three main principles. The first one is that we want to minimize the consumption of resources. So the idea is that if we don't need it now, let's delay it. Let's postpone the production of that product. However, if we do need it, let's make it. But once the product is made, manufactured, then we want to use it at the highest utility for as long as possible. In this way, we're maximizing the circulation. And finally, when that product reaches the end of life, perhaps we want to minimize the content that could end up in landfill or incineration. In this way, we can achieve the so-called cradle to cradle. But using the example of aluminum cans, you might be thinking, oh, is that then we have to reuse every single can and then make a new can out of that? Probably not, because that's the point here that I'm trying to make, that every single product will have the recovery options, and the choices will depend on the characteristics of products. The ideas, however, are still the same, that we want to use that product longer and retain its value. With that way, and that idea, then we come up with, this Ellen MacArthur Foundation came up with the 4 sources of value creation in circular economy. And the first one is called power of the inner circle. The inner circle, if you remember my circle early on, is the reuse circle. So it is suggested that whenever possible, we reuse the product. Because reusing the product is the easiest and the least energy needed for that. And then secondly, we have the so-called power of circling longer. Indeed, we want to reuse, we want to use the product as long as possible. If we finish using that product, we cascade it to the next use or the next users. And finally, of course, we want to, and this is very, very relevant to your industry, that we want to uphold safety, by reducing the chance of toxic materials being being distributed or being used by someone else. In around 2019, we did this research, circular economy, and we think that in order for us to be able to effectively implement circular economy, we need to understand the 3 values of circular economy. So the first one is called the principles of circular economy. The second group of this is called attributes, and the third one is called enabler. So the idea is this: the principles alone are not sufficient. We need to understand the inherent attribute or characteristics of a product, components, materials, the way that material has been designed and incorporated into products. And finally, there has to be enablers. We need technology, we need market, and we need innovation. And this is probably, we will hear a bit more from Emma later on. Wrote the papers on that. So if you are interested in this, take a look at that paper. You will be able to see how we use the principles, attributes, and enablers in promoting circular economy. Give you an example of a principle. In this way, we look at a principle called leakage minimization. Of course, we want to minimize leakage, be they chemical products, that's dangerous. But also, if we look at leakage from the product, we need to ensure that the product that we want to recycle can be recycled 100% if possible. So minimizing leakage means that maximizing the amount of components of the product that can be recycled or reused. An example of attribute is circularity. That goes back to the design. So in order for us to achieve circular economy, we need to go towards that design phase. We need to be able to design the product so that it can be easily disassembled. We need to choose the manufacturing process. We need to choose the materials, the right materials, so it can be recycled easily. Yeah? So everything will support circular economy. So that's what I meant by attribute of circular economy. And finally, enablers. We need to have a market that allows circular economy values to be implemented. Yeah, so secondary markets, for instance. In this chart, you will see how second-hand rubbers and tires can be used for many purposes. Some people ask me, so what's circular economy without the economics? Can we only live with economy? We know that economy is about efficiency. So if you look at the journey of circular economy, they always have some models or business models that accompanies this circular economy. And there are many of them. Well, at least there are 5 typical models. So I'm going to talk about the last one. The last one is called performance-based. So remember I said early on about minimizing resources. So it means that when you use a product, you may not want to own that product. You may want to share the product. Yeah. So performance-based, it means that you only pay that product, you only pay the function, yeah, or the capabilities of that product instead of buying the product. These are some examples of product service systems. Yeah, for instance, the very, very famous Power by the Hour of the Rolls-Royce. Basically, airlines will only pay, well, this is a simplified definition of Power by the Hour, only pay when the engine is actually working, be they in the airport, flying, or anywhere. As long as the engine is working, then the airlines will pay Rolls-Royce. And similarly with Xerox, Caterpillar, Alstom, and also MAN Truck. I work at the Center for E-Mobility and Clean Growth, as I mentioned to you before. And within my center, there are 3 main pillars. So one is about hydrogen, the other is about batteries, and the third one is about electronics. So in this particular slide that you see, this is how we work on batteries. We design the batteries, we invent the new types of batteries, we manufacture, so we have a miniature of battery facilities, manufacturing facilities, and also we're trying to make facilities for recycling. What's interesting in this slide, as you see in the middle there, lithium-ion battery recycling. We believe that after the battery come out of EV cars, there are a lot of possible applications of these batteries. And therefore, what we're trying to do is that instead of directly recycling the batteries, we want to squeeze out the functionality of that batteries by reusing it for other purposes, right? So you remember that we are using the power of the inner circle. So instead of recycling, we want to reuse that battery immediately. So our work in the center looking at how we develop a business model utilizing second life batteries And this is one of the business model called battery as a service. The picture that you see here is a motorcycle taxi in Indonesia. As you know, Indonesia is very a lot of traffic jam, a lot of motorcycle taxis. So the companies running this business is actually not selling the batteries, but selling the power of the batteries. And the guy there going to this station, instead of charging the car, they are swapping the batteries, get the batteries out and put the new battery in, off he goes. Yeah, so that's the business model of battery as a service. We designed the process using a standard business model canvas, and this is just an example of business model canvas. This is actually interesting because we did this model canvas for a hotel. A hotel in some remote islands in Indonesia. They're trying to think of a different way of charging their customers. I'm sure you're all familiar with the low-cost model. You buy the ticket, but then you have to buy the seat, you have to buy the food, everything. So they're thinking of, they're selling a base quite cheap for their room, but then the customers, the guests, would need to buy their own electricity. In that way, perhaps, they would be able to reduce the electricity usage, and therefore, of course, it's good for the environment. So to conclude my presentation, we're talking about circular economy and also clean growth. We believe that we have to grow economically, but also cleanly, and of course, Amon said early on, safely. Growth is not a sacrifice, it's not about just less, but also about better. Growth is still needed, we still need growth, but should be cleaner, smarter, more innovative, and also more inclusive.
Benny, thank you. You kind of thrown the gauntlet down there with some challenges. I want to move straight away, Emma, to you, because Benny's been talking there about some fundamental principles. To what extent, Emma, do you think in international business, those fundamental principles, circular economy, performance-based, are endemic? Or is this a new thing? What are you seeing?
Well, I think there's going to be some quite similar themes across our presentations, and full disclosure, Benny and I have worked together before on some of this product service systems work. I think no business can get away from thinking about circular economy because even as the smallest business will be touching a value chain in some way where there will be issues with sustainability, with excess materials use. So whether it's a small business or a large international business, it's inevitable that all of us need to be thinking more about sustainability.
It's
and
not
because
an option.
you're seeing what's that?
It's not an option.
It's not an option. It's not an option. No, we all need to be thinking about it. Yeah.
You've got some slides for us.
And I've got some slides that we'll talk through. But yeah, I mean, the challenges are that in order to be more sustainable, we have to collaborate with others across the value chain. And that's not easy. So, you know, that's some of what we're focusing our research on. But William's got a framework for talking about the ladder of circularity, so different ways that we can think about circularity. And some of it kind of will be similar to what Benny's been talking about as well.
Brilliant. I'm going to hand over to you with your PowerPoint presentation, and William, feel free to pitch in at the same time too.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you. So yeah, really enjoyed that presentation. Thank you, Benny. So our title is The Circularity Ladder, and we were interested in looking at the implications for chemical and allied industries. The chemical industry, as you see on the next slide, it plays a crucial role in the global transition towards net zero carbon emissions because it's a sector that has a big impact. And if you see on the next slide, it's not just what you do directly within your industry, it's the fact that you've got these complex and diverse product value chains that interact with almost every other sector, particularly including energy, transportation, built environment, consumer goods and agriculture. So there's kind of no getting away from it in your industry because you're often providing the raw materials for other industries as well as your own activities. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see that production of chemicals is a leading industrial source of carbon emissions, and you're third behind cement and iron and steel manufacturing. You probably know this already. And you're also the largest industrial consumer of energy products worldwide. And of course, you're also a successful industry, and there's growing demand for chemicals over the coming decades. So the problem's not going to get easier. It's just going to get more challenging. So it's really important that across the whole industry and across all these value chains that we're looking at how to be more circular. So if you go to the next slide, now it becomes quite challenging because your value chains are not simple. They're kind of overlapped. There's a lot of intersecting value chains between different parts of the chemical industry. And then in addition, because you're an international sector, there's challenges across working across geographic regions and with the other sectors that I've already mentioned. Your own industry's use of carbon emitting energy is a challenge. So your scope 2 emissions, so it includes your generation of purchased energy and heat to produce what you produce in the chemicals sector. And then if we click to the next slide, the further challenge is that your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions are your partners in your value chain, scope 3. So even if you didn't want to be paying attention to the impact that you're having, the carbon emissions that your sector is producing, you would be being required to pay more attention to this because the organizations you're working with are trying to measure and define their own scope 3, which is the indirect emissions in their value chains. So your downstream producers are thinking a lot about what the chemical industry's scope 1 and 2 emissions are. And of course, this is really challenging for you because a lot of the carbon emitted from chemical products is typically at a stage where you're not directly involved. So it's downstream doing the use of products or even the end of life, the incineration or decomposition, as Benny was talking about before. So it's tricky and it's challenging, and I think it requires a degree of creativity and being willing to sit down with others from outside the sector to kind of challenge what you do and look for innovative solutions. So in a way, today's session, I think, is part of that, where you've invited some of us who are not part of the chemicals industry to come and talk with you and see if what we are focusing on has some use for you in that challenge. If you go to the next slide, I think William's now going to talk through this ladder of circularity idea.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you for the audience for this opportunity. In this slide, we can see that we have been profiting from the linear logic. As it was explained, that we extract natural resources from the earth, transform it into raw materials that are transformed into products that are delivered to customers. But the problem here is that we waste all of these valuable resources just after use. According to the circular economy, almost 93% of the global economy works in this wasteful way. But next slide, please. Next slide, please. One more, please. Yeah, exactly. The problem is that we are making scarcity of important resources. Like this example from the electronic industry, you can see that some materials that are used for the production of smartphones are going to get more and more scarce over the years. But the good news is that in order, one more animation, please. Yeah, over the we can remind important elements for the production of smartphones from discarded smartphones, as you can see in these two boxes. Next slide, please. Here we have three curves, okay? Extraction of raw materials, growth, economic growth, and carbon emissions. All of them grow together. But one more, please. Yeah, if you see carbon, go 3 more, please. Carbon emissions, they generate extra energy in the Earth's surface. This next, please. This generates weather conditions that have been changing towards, one more, please. One more. Extreme weather conditions that can disrupt the way that in which we do consumption and production activities. And if anything changes, our societies will collapse. Next slide, please. And so how we can do a change from a linear economy to, next please, that is wasteful, that overconsume natural resources and generate environmental impacts. Next, please. To circular businesses that, next, please, do not waste resources, maintain profit generation over time, and prevent or strongly minimize environmental impacts. In order to do this transition, we needed to understand 5 aspects. Next, please. That we are going to through each one of them across the slides. Next slide, please. Yeah, the circular logic is based on the application of non-virgin material resources. But what's that? Okay, the first material to be reapplied are post-consumer materials. Next, please. Those mean materials that are discarded by customers after use. And next, please. Post-industrial materials, those are, next please, materials that are leaked from the operations from businesses. Next slide, please. Those materials, they flow through 2 types of cycles, okay? The first cycle is the biological cycle, next please, in which products composed of biodegradable nutrients are returned to earth or are reapplied in any type of economic activity, as you can see in the green arrows. And the second type of cycle is the technical cycle, next please, in which products with non biodegradable materials are reapplied in circular practices such as reuse, refurbish, remanufacture, as we saw before in the session. Next slide, please. Circular chemistry. It works through 12 principles that I would love to talk with you all about all of them, but we have a short time. But it can start from collect and use waste, going through thinking about reapplication of resources during the early stages of product design, and going to the application of circular economy practice that is applying the ladder of circularity. Next slide, please. Here we have the ladder of circularity. Of course, that there are different models, but this is my favorite one, okay? Here we apply the rule of thumb. If you go up in the ladder, you are going to be more circular and waste less resources. And if you go down, you are going to be less circular and waste more resources that are valuable. Okay, we have 10 levels in this ladder that we are going to discuss in the next few slides. Next, please. Next, please. Recover is all about generation of electricity from non-virgin materials. You are going to see here now in this diagram, next please, in which chemical industry and allied partners can work together to develop different processes to generate energy from post-consumed and post-industrial materials. Next slide, please. The next level in the ladder is recycle. So we have here an example of converting through some processes a material to be reapplied. We have the steelmaking industry that, next please, produces steel inputs that are sand for manufacturers. Next, please. Diesel manufacturers produce products, next please, that are sent for use. And after use, these products are discarded, and steel parts can be recycled and used in a new cycle of steel making. Next slide, please. Next level is repurpose. So we use a discarded product in a different purpose. We have this example here. Next, please. A food company can store, can package their products in packaging that once empty can assume a new purpose like a measuring cup or a food storage. In the next level, please, we have remanufacture that consists of using discarded parts that are in working conditions to produce a new product. Here we have the example from Renault. Renault did a partnership with an external partner that disassembles after sale turbochargers. Next, please. Test components that are working condition. Next, please. Reassemble all of these components to do a new turbocharger, and Renault makes profit from selling these turbochargers in the second-hand market. Next, please. We have the next level is refurbish. That's basically updating a product that is obsolete to current standards. A common example are updating obsolete smartphones by replacing non-updated parts to updated parts and making it up to date in terms of functionalities. Next level, please. Next level is repair. And repair consists of maintaining the use of a product as much as it can over time within working conditions. So it can be reached in three ways. We can restore, we can repair for corrective maintenance a pump that sends to the chemical industry production process water for this production process. But if this pump is critical, we can do preventive maintenance, so we can avoid failure with scheduling replacements of parts and components. And if it is even more critical, we can take care of this pump by installing sensors that will monitor the life of this pump. And if it is close for some parameter of failure, an intervention will be scheduled for avoiding the failure. Next slide, please. We can speak about here reuse by of a discarded product that is still in working condition in a different sector. Like, for example, we can have a rent contract. Next, please. Customers don't have the ownership, but they have the availability of the product over time, and they are responsible to return it for the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will do some intervention and sell it again in a term of contract for a new reuse for a different customer. Next slide, please. We have reduced, that means increase efficiency in product manufacture or in product use. It can be reached through two ways. Could you please show for me? Focus on reducing resources consumed in manufacturing. Okay, so when compared to a last version, the material can consume less materials. See the new iPhones that are thicker than the last version, and focus on reducing resources during consumption use. This consists of companies doing campaigns to make customers aware of new ways of using the products in a more efficient way. We have R1, next please. That is about rethinking, that can be reached in two ways, okay? A product can be more intensive use during its operational life by sharing, okay? We have the example of this washing machine being used by several people in a central location. More example, please. and we have the multifunctional products, which is particularly used in the electronic industry. So instead of having single product functions, we have products with multiple functions. So we use the same resource for providing more functionalities. Next, please. This is the last degree of the ladder that is refused. So it's making a product redundant by abandoning its product function. One example is your technological advances in streaming make not needed the use of resources for the production of DVD and CD players. One more example, please. And providing the same function with a separate product. So again, a smartphone can offer to customers several functions that were at first provided by one single product. Next slide, please. So the different combination of these circular practices presented in the ladder can help businesses and their allied partners to, over time, decrease carbon emissions and contribute for coping with the climate urgency by doing a complex move towards growing circularity. But as Emma said, this is not possible by one single actor, and the partnerships are needed. Now I'm heading back to Emma.
Thank you, William. Next slide, please. And if you wouldn't mind clicking through, thank you. So yes, the challenge with circularity is, so I think many of us are bought into the fact that using the Earth's scarce resources as effectively as possible is really important. And yet, when you look at the statistics, it looks like we are reducing the amount of circularity that is in our systems. So 9% of the global economy was estimated to be circular in 2018 and only 6.9% in 2025. So we're going in the wrong direction. And I think that's because we know it's important, but it's hard to do. So how can we climb this circularity ladder more effectively? So if we go to the next slide, I think one of the things is just mindset. So rather than organizations thinking solely about their own individual objectives, we need to be thinking in terms of a broader system and having a more circular mindset right from the start with every product and process design that we're involved in. We need to be looking for the non-virgin materials available in the chain that can be reused in other ways, maybe not by us, but maybe by another stakeholder, collaborator in our value chains. We need to also then look at how we can partner effectively. And as I said, that's been a lot of our research, is looking at how different organizations can get together to be innovative in a collaborative way. And some of what we need to do is we need more data, and technology can help us with this, digitalize our circular practices, give us the data that we need so that we can be more effective in being circular in our value chains. So the last slide I'll just show you here. Some of what I've been researching for the last few years is how different organizations can get together to collaborate for environmental innovation or sustainable innovation. And what we need to overcome there is every organization will have its own set of goals, its own organizational culture, its own timeframes, skills and capabilities. And what we need to do to be a good collaborator with other organizations is give time to them to understand what their goals are, what their values are, what their timeframes are, how they talk about things, so what their language is, you know, what a product means to them, which might be different to what we think of as a product. And what we found is the organizations who are good collaborators, who manage to set up lasting partnerships with other organizations in their value chains, they do that by giving time to the partnership, giving space to the partnership. So they invest time in just spending time with each other, allowing their employees to meet often in a third space away from either organization, where they can be collaborative together through understanding each other's goals and values. And then what they do is they try and come up with a solution that meets both organizations' objectives, but it might be on completely different timescales, might be measured in different ways. It might be reported back into the organization in different ways. But that's the way that they make these partnerships get started. And then they continue to invest in them over time so that the partnership keeps working and it becomes a lasting one that really successfully changes systems. So that's it from me. Happy to, and from William, but we're happy to answer any questions or have a discussion if you've got some points to make. And we have got our emails also in the next slide, if you would like to get in touch with us after the webinar as well.
Brilliant.
Thank
Emma
you.
and William, thank you so much indeed. You've set a whole bunch of more challenges there. There's a fantastic killer question, and Kelly, this is a fantastic question from you. I think you're talking on behalf of the whole audience here. What opportunities, Kelly's asking, do you see for unlocking circular value in the chemical industry in particular? Emma, maybe you kick off first. You've been thinking about it.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm not a chemist, but I know that you guys provide the raw materials for so many industries. So I think if you don't have the data about how your raw materials are impacting the bigger value chain, then that would be one place to start, is to basically try and find ways to get that data. And the data may not be yours to own. You might have to collaborate with the other actors in your value chains. So for instance, Benny mentioned Rolls-Royce working with the airlines in order to make that power by the hour value proposition work, where the engine is owned by Rolls-Royce but used by the airline on their aircraft. Rolls-Royce needs a lot of information from that customer about what they're doing with their aircraft, where they're flying, how frequently they're flying, and so on. So there's a lot of data sharing that's going on between supplier and customer in that arrangement. And so they've had to work up to kind of a model where they have trust in each other in order to share that data. But then that means that Rolls-Royce is able to provide that very effective solution. So I think that would be one thing, is trying to work out how you can get that data through working more effectively with the other actors in your value chains. There's other things you can do, but that's one important step.
Emma, thank you. Ben, I'm going to come to you. We haven't heard much from our culture and leadership there. We've talked about harnessing differences of mindsets. Rolls-Royce make it sound so easy. Is it purely data or is it people?
Well, it depends on the products, depends on the service. Maybe the case of Rolls-Royce is quite apparent that the product is high value, requires lots of services, and buying power by the hour, not only saving money in terms of the airlines, but also ensuring that sustainability goals can be achieved by buying power by the hour. And from the supplier's side, from the Rolls-Royce side, Rolls-Royce ensure that help the customers. You don't need to have MRO facilities. We look after the engine. We sell the functions. We sell the hour, the capability of our engine. Yeah. So reuse and sharing.
So I want to follow on, Emma, if I can, and William, feel free to pitch in about this time and space. Give time and give space for partnering and collaboration. Where do you begin with that? Are we talking about supply chain engagements, contracts? Where do we begin? Emma?
Yes, I think it has to go beyond the contract. So you've got to, the job of the lawyers is very important to put the contracts down, but you've got to build the relationships between those organizations. So often it's, if it's a partnership between two organizations, it's literally spending some time getting to know that partner very well, visiting their site, getting them to visit your site, understanding each other's operations really well, and then finding the exciting opportunities, the synergies, and so on. if it's a collective of more organizations, then sometimes it's quite helpful to have a third party facilitate it. So for instance, the association that's hosting us today, maybe, you become the forum for all these different actors to get together and meet and spend time. I also think it's really important that that conversation between those different organizations, those potential partners, happens at multiple levels in those organizations. So it's not just something at CEO level, but that actually across different relevant sections of those organizations, there are conversations going on. And that means giving your people time. You need to give your people time to spend time visiting each other and chatting. It looks like just having a coffee, but actually what they're doing is exploring opportunities for innovation.
So it's the culture inside the organization. Thank you. And moving on to, I think Adiraj has a brilliant question. You mentioned hotels and the new business models there. Food waste. Tell us more about food waste. Is that part of the business model in terms of hotels that you were thinking of?
Really good question there, Toby. I'm going to start with the circular economy value that I presented early on. We usually know what we're going to do or we need to do. We have principles on how to do things the right way. We have ladders from Emma and from William. Well, the higher the ladder, the better, because then we uphold the value of circular economy better than the lower ladders. But to me, that's not enough, because not just about how to do things, but it also depends on what we are doing with it, product or a service. And then we look at the enablers. Do we have enablers for this? So the hotel that I talked about early on is an exploratory model. That's a service model, by food. What you pay for your food, because you know that once you pay, you can have everything. Then that's where you have the freedom to almost waste the food. But if there is an enabling, there is a constraint, the opposite of enablers, the constraint of it, so that then your mindset, again mentioned by Emma early on, mindset is really important, and actually really important in circular economy applications, that those three pillars, the attributes, principles, and also enablers, actually form the mindset. So if our mindset saying that if we do not have this electricity card, that we're given a limited resources for our room, our mindset will change. If we are given a limited food for what we paid, then our mindset may change too. Well, it's simple things that we had here in the UK is when they change, when we have to pay for the plastic bag. Remember that, right? So the moment they charge the plastic bag, mindset changed slightly.
Mine did. I take a bag every time I go to the shop
Exactly.
now. That's an excellent example. Brilliant. Keep your questions coming if you've not had a chance. We've got a few more minutes left. Barend has an interesting question. I think this possibly ties into what, Emma, you were saying. Barend is saying that we specify retest dates on our chemicals that we sell instead of expiry dates. Maybe that is a chance to collaborate. We noticed, customer, that we've sold you some chemicals. The retest date is this. Maybe we should collaborate around how we do that. What do you think about that sort of model, Emma? Are you seeing that in international business?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the kind of thinking, because we sometimes take for granted that this is how things are done. But actually, sometimes either within our organization or being challenged from outside, someone saying to, but why? Why do you behave that way? And could there be something, a different approach to this? So yes, I think William wanted to say something.
William, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Emma. You both mentioned the two relevant points: partnerships and mindset. Yeah, and when we face challenges, the main challenge for me is understand that we need, for businesses particularly, that we need to go beyond the company's boundaries and understand that we need alliances, partnerships for being circular. And connecting to the point of mindset, I think that we need to use the language that we have now for keep learning how to be circular in businesses. Like, for example, put people together from businesses around value proposition. Okay, and I think that we have already plenty of terminologies, names, business jargon that we can use to communicate to people in businesses why circular is good, why circular is important for long-term profitability, and etc. We have, like, for example, examples from Brazil in which companies that use discarded paper to produce new packaging from cards, but they need to, these companies communicate with collectors that are people that walk through Brazilian streets collecting these papers, okay? And they need to communicate to these collectors that we call street pickers, for example, which type of paper are more attracted for these businesses for the production of packaging. So you can see their collaboration through really different stakeholders, okay? People from vulnerable communities in Brazil that do this collection, and highly qualified people from companies that do the conversion of this paper into new packaging. So I think mindset, partnership, and understand that we need time for doing these connections are pivotal for going towards growth in terms of circularity and green growth, as we already mentioned and discussed during this conversation.
William, thank you. We've heard there social impact, corporate impact, individual impact. Benny, I'm sure I saw on one of your slides a triple bottom line. You had profit, people, and planet.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of business? Is it what we've talked about here, circularity, or is it just making money?
Oh, of course. I mean, when we do business, we talk about revenue and cost. Yeah, so we either both increasing revenue, reducing cost. But don't forget that increasing revenue alone is probably not enough to sustain the business. And sustainability often comes as the variables or parameters to reduce costs. I mean, chemical industry, our colleagues here, they have to work safety, for instance. They have to ensure safety, because certainly if things go wrong in their industry, it's going to be costly, not only financially, but also reputation, human lives. So certainly we need to look at these three bottom lines.
Emma, just a few words in the few minutes we have remaining. The purpose of chemical industries, can we even talk about that? Is it the triple bottom line?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, every organization needs to sustain itself over time. So obviously profits are important, but I think, more and more organizations are recognizing that they have that broader remit. So it's not just profit at the sake of everything else. Because not least because we're all humans, our employees are humans, and what we do as businesses spills out beyond just the scope, the boundaries of that business, and spills out into the economy, into society, and into its impact on the world. So yes, I think the answer is, it's all. I think every business needs to be thinking about this.
Thank you. And William, in a few seconds, where should people start? In the few seconds that we have remaining, give us an idea of where should people start?
People should start by doing what we are doing now, talking about that, spreading the word, and showing in a simple way that we are not going to be able to be profitable over time, because this is the language that people nowadays understand, if we do not do a reasonable management of our resources. Speaking, talking to each other, and doing alliances for making it possible, I think is the beginning, and giving ourselves time to learn, to make more and more property from circular, to maintain our societies.
That is actually a profound conclusion to a very stimulating debate. We have run out of time. This needs to carry on, and we look to CAIA to help stimulate more and more of these conversations. Emma, thank you so much indeed for taking time out of your busy days to join us here in the studio. William, likewise.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Great working with Strathclyde. Benny, what can we say? It's fantastic. We're stimulated again by your slides and the challenges that you put towards us. Thank you for your time. The recording will be made available via CAIA. So thank you for taking your time to join us too. The producer today was Colin Pilbeam. The studio managers were Marco Gomez and Robin Hackett. My name is Toby Thompson. Thank you for watching.